Welcome to Dealer Driven, where the rubber meets the road to success. This episode sponsored by AutoTrader.
Power your dealership forward with the #1 marketplace in car buying. From intelligent tools to engaging shopper experiences, discover how AutoTrader's connected marketplace turns more shoppers into buyers at DealDoers.com.
Welcome to Dealer Driven. I'm Michael Hayes.
And I'm Camron Wilson. Today we're taking a deep dive into the latest car buyer journey study from Cox Automotive, a comprehensive look at how consumers shop for and purchase vehicles in an increasingly digital world.
Joining us are two experts from Cox Automotive who have unparalleled insight into the data and the industry. Jade Terreberry, Senior Director of Strategic Development, and Vanessa Tone, Senior Research and Market Intelligence Manager.
Together, they'll unpack what this year's study reveals about buyer satisfaction, the power of digital tools, and what dealers can do to create a seamless, personalized customer journey before the deal even begins.
Let's get started.
Jade and Vanessa, welcome to the show. We're so happy to have you.
Thank you so much for having us.
We are so glad to be here with you.
So to kick us off, can you each share what stood out the most to you in this year's car buyer journey study, especially compared to previous years? Jade, why don't you start?
Sure. So I'll jump right in. First, I will say consumers are happy. So that's a good thing. All of our dealers listening should reach around and pat themselves on the back. And the role that third-party marketplaces are playing in today's environment is more important than ever before. Vanessa's going to tell you about some of the cross-shopping stats and things that her team uncovered in this study. And it's fascinating, but we're glad to see those consumers happy with the experience that our industry has given them.
I think the thing that jumped out for me is that despite the amount of time that people are spending in market shopping and doing all this research, the increased amount of time I thought would decrease their satisfaction level, which is not the case at all. They feel like, hey, I didn't have to compromise when I was looking for this vehicle. I spent quality time researching, figuring out what vehicles I want. I have all these choices. Prices are a little bit better than before. So therefore, we see satisfaction level at these record highs, especially from a dealership standpoint. We've never seen anything surpass 80%. And, in the 2024 study, it reached 81. So it was a new milestone, a new peak for us.
So that's such great news to hear. As you mentioned, this year's study highlights record high satisfaction among new vehicle buyers. So can you talk to us a little bit about what factors contributed most to that uptick and what does that mean for our dealers right now?
Well, the thing that we saw in the research is that they said they're happier with the selection because, again, there's more inventory, right? But they're also happier with pricing. So they also said, in addition to that, there was a better transition from what I did online in my shopping and transactional step. And it was easy to walk into a dealership and pick up where I left off. And we saw increased satisfaction from that standpoint because in looking at the verbatims, they just said, you know what, it just feels like it's more efficient because I had the right tools. So I was able to get what I want, but also the dealers were more transparent with me with the pricing and with inventory levels. So I felt like I was getting the best deal that I can get. So that I think those are all contributing factors that is making them so happy. And that's great news for the dealership, right? Because they're doing everything they can to satisfy this need. However, we do want to tell dealers, meet the consumers where they want to be. They want to have some good offline versus online experiences. So have the right tools from that standpoint to empower them in their journey.
So Vanessa, if I may, would you consider that maybe the things that we learned during COVID kind of have accelerated the process being easier when they get to the dealership than, say, before COVID started?
I would say so because during COVID, especially in 2020, when the pandemic started, things were much more efficient because dealers had to keep, I'm going to say, modified hours because certain dealers had to close down. They can only have a few hours. So because of that, they offered a lot of tools for the customers. and they made it the most efficient they can ever make it, where you just go in and out and get what you want. And remember, at that time in 2020, there were a whole lot of vehicles available and there were so many incentives. So you get a great deal and it's quick and easy. Since then, we do see that dealers are keeping the process streamlined. However, with consumers, old habits are hard to die, right? Because it's hard to go back to being, all digital during the pandemic. So people kind of stepped back into the offline aspect of it. So we're seeing a little bit of that creeping up where people want to do both. They want that hybrid approach, or we call it the omni-channel approach, because they want to do it when they want to do it. Hey, I'm going to shop when I get home from the grocery store, so I'm just going to hop online and check to see what's available, or I could do it after my kids fall asleep. So they want that empowerment and that ease. But we do see that efficiency still there, but it's creeping up in terms of the amount of time that people spend.
Great, thank you. Convenience, imagine that, right? Jade, at a recent conference, I heard you say a phrase and it really stuck with me. You said, I have heard, you say that focus on the customer journey before the deal. Can you explain what that looks like in practice and why it's such a critical mindset?
You bet. It all comes back to that omni-channel experience that Vanessa just mentioned. We see it in every consumer study that we have done in the last few years post-pandemic. Consumers want the ability to start or stop anywhere they want, and whether that's the OEM site or a third-party marketplace or the dealership website or in the store, but they want to be able to pick back up exactly where they left off. They want all of those pieces to connect seamlessly so that they don't have to put information in again. They don't want to move backwards. They want to keep getting one step closer to purchasing. And so even though we see, cross shopping, a lot of it happening, but as this time that consumers are spending online increases, what we see is they're also doing a lot of research and connecting with the dealers that are going to give them the experience that they want, that are going to allow them to have this kind of self-guided, self-controlled, self-paced experience. And it's working well for the dealer too, because these deals are actually becoming more profitable than just a straight traditional sale when the consumer has time to really dive in and study and do that research and understand the peace of mind products that they have access to. And so, when I say consumer first, not only do you have to offer that experience, but you've got to tell them about it. Because often that first click that they make, and we talk a lot about click to close, but that first click that they make, it's about the car and the price and maybe the distance in which they're willing to go to make a purchase. But just about every one of those clicks in between, and depending on the consumer age demographic, that could be 9 clicks or it could be 250 clicks between the time they start their journey and the time they actually buy a car. And what they're weeding out along the way is generally dealerships or people that don't give them that transparent experience that builds trust and credibility, just like Vanessa talked about a few minutes ago.
So clearly there's a zillion digital tools out there. And the study, focused a lot on how digital tools played a huge role in boosting consumer satisfaction. What would you say are some of the most impactful tools today, and how can dealerships better integrate them?
Those seamless and connected digital retailing tools are the first place. And, a decade ago, it was really scary for dealers and OEMs to think about giving that control to a consumer to self-pencil and self-guide. But now it's a requirement. It is an expectation from every consumer that they can pencil that deal, that they can understand and see their trade valuation and to understand what their potential payments could be, the opportunity to shop by payment. Those are really critical pieces of building that trust and credibility in the online experience. Vanessa, what are your thoughts?
I would add to that, Jade, that people also want to do more in the credit journey aspect of it, where they want to be able to get pre-approved, apply for financing online, and getting some type of paperwork started, because that's one of the most tedious parts of it, right? So they said that would ease the process for me. So I think that part is important, some type of tool that addresses the financing. But the other part that we saw in the research is that we did ask consumers, well, what's holding you back from doing more online, like digitally? And one of the things they said is that, hey, I'm not able to ask questions to a dealer if I do it online. I would have to wait until I go into the dealership. And we said, well, there's also, while you're shopping, there's AI chatbots that can quickly answer questions that you may have immediately. And then a salesperson or someone, a consultant, can contact you later to give you more information. But it is reachable. There's accessibility, and that is what's going to help them overcome that hesitancy to do more online. So I think AI chatbot is important.
We saw too, I'm just going to add one more thing to that. In one of the other amazing studies that Vanessa's team completed, our Evolving Consumer Study, consumers actually said that they trust the information that comes out of an AI assistant even more than a human in some cases when it comes to some of the valuations and the deal structuring pieces. And so, you think about the role that AI is going to play as we get our 10-car guy to become a 15-car guy and our 20-car guy to be a 25 or 30-car a month guy. Like, these efficiencies that technology can enable are a win-win-win for the consumer, the dealership, and the manufacturer.
And maybe because those agents don't talk as much about themselves as some of our salespeople do or something. But anyways, I think the next thing, and this kind of goes along with what Vanessa was talking about, there's a common misconception, at least there has been in the past, that most buyers want to do everything online. And Vanessa, you started to address this a little bit. So how does the data kind of push back on that? And what else do buyers really want? You mentioned about, like some of the answers on financial, they can answer me in person and things like that. What other things did you notice from the study that buyers want, that they prefer to do in person? A significant number of them, at least, prefer to do it in person.
Well, they want to do the negotiation in person. And the reason why they say they want to do that in person is because they feel like, hey, if I do that part of it in person, I'm probably going to get a better deal. Where if you do it face to face, it's more personal. There's wiggle room. There's ways to get the best deal that you can. And they feel like if they did that online somehow, that they're going to miss out. However, dealers can work with that, right? Because they're more transparent with the pricing and you can get pre-approved for a loan. So I think you can kind of do all your homework and still negotiate online to get the best deal. But it's just that gut feeling where you're like, you know what, if I go in there and I hammer him, he's probably going to get me the better deal. And I think that's the hesitancy that's holding people back. And it's kind of a fear still.
So now that would be me as a salesman. I'm sorry, you have to talk to my chatbot if you want to reduce the price. Okay.
Have you checked out the hit podcast series For the Road Forward by Auto Trader and Kelley Blue Book? Tune in for real-world discussions with industry leaders and experts on the automotive trends and topics that should be on your radar. Go to b2b.autotrader.com/fortheroadforward.
So we've talked a lot about digital and the in-person experience. So help our members better understand, for dealers looking to really personalize the journey, because, the chatbots and all of these things are pretty standard out of the box. How can they personalize the buyer journey? And what are some of the steps they can take to align all of the data and the tools and the people at the dealership towards that goal?
I can address that with leads, especially enhanced leads. What we saw in our research is we think dealers should try to encourage people to input their information in, because the more information that they have on you, the more they can customize and get you exactly what you want, that car, that financing, etc. So there's two different types of leads. There's basic leads, which is just the basic contact information. And then there's enhanced leads. And enhanced leads go into what the trade-in value, credit information, what vehicle you're trading in. There's a lot more information for the dealers to work with before they meet you in person, so they can gather all the information and get you exactly what you want. And we see in our data that more people are more likely to do enhanced leads, and they say they just do provide that type of information. But we also see that people who generate these enhanced leads, they're more likely to close the deal as well. So we think that's really important, and that's something that dealers should encourage and somehow tout the benefits of it so then consumers can say, hey, I'm getting something out of it if I provide more information.
Vanessa, you also said earlier, we were talking about the time spent. I think that was one of the surprises. I believe you said how customers are spending more time, but the satisfaction is higher
Yes.
than it was,
Yes.
even though it's taken them more time. So along that line, what does that say about how dealers should approach the shopping phase? Because I think the increase in time was during the shopping phase, not the transaction
Correct.
phase. And if I remember right, reading a study, it was kind of from the area where they were more investigating the dealer, I think, if I'm not mistaken. That time seemed to be up, meaning when wasn't so much the research on the car, but it was more like the research on the dealer. Did I read that correctly, or did I miss it?
Actually, it's across the board. More time spent online researching, more time talking to others about the vehicle, whether it's your friends or family, more time going to the dealership and trying to find more information about the vehicle, doing research from that offline standpoint. So across the board, it's increased. And we were just like, wow, how could they be happy? But the more we dug into the data, remember, it's the quality of time, right? So, hey, I don't want to spend a whole lot of time doing the financing and the negotiation because that's the most tedious. But if I spend the amount of time looking at the car, getting to know the car, and what's really important is the setup of the car. If I get to know the car, I know how to set up the technology, that increases my satisfaction because I know what I'm getting and I'm going to enjoy the experience of the car. And that's what we want the dealerships to know. Teach them more about the car, give them time to engage with the car because that's truly what they want.
So you already mentioned AI and chatbots, and with AI evolving so quickly, is there anything else that you've seen or you know of that's coming in the AI world that you think will make for more seamless customer experiences this year and beyond?
Yeah, you bet. So, dealers who are using real time data to power their operations, their insights, their advertising, those are the ones that are winning. And the advancements that are being made with AI right now to be more predictive for the consumer on helping them shop more efficiently. Like we spent a long time saying, like, getting the right consumer to the right car at the right time was enough. That was really important, and that was big 4 or 5 years ago. And now it's so much further beyond that with the power of AI and real-time data. It's really about targeting the consumer with the right message, the right content, the right call to action, landing them back in the right spot so that they continue to get one step closer to their desired outcome, hopefully being a transaction with you as the dealer. But those are some areas where you're going to see huge improvement. Natural language search, predictive search, looking at something that a consumer has done on an OEM site or on a dealership website. And when they get to that third-party marketplace like Auto Trader, all of that rich information is just right there and continues to get them one step closer to transaction. And that's the experience that those consumers are looking for, and then giving them that ability to seamlessly transition in store.
So connecting all those dots, keeping them all connected.
You got it.
I always like to do that. Absolutely. So finally, what's one actionable insight that you would hope, each one of you would hope that every dealership leader hears and acts on? Something they can do today that we really don't spend enough effort on recognizing or doing, whatever that may be.
I'll go first. I'm going to go with trade valuation talk tracks. I think it's one of the biggest pieces of friction for the consumer right now in both the online and in-store experience. And we're not talking about it enough as an industry. So the average consumer is showing up at a dealership's lot today with 2.5 to 3 offers in hand on their trade valuation. Some of those age demographics have 7 or 8 or 9. And the average spread in the pricing that they've been given is about $2,000. And so you think all the years we spent as an industry getting to a one price approach on the vehicle we're selling to reduce friction and mistrust and uncertainty with the consumer. And now we've just flipped that to the trade. And so I would say focus on that friction point and train your teams anybody that is consumer facing to use real-time data to justify those trade-in values and to explain to them and actually use that part of the process to build trust, transparency, and credibility.
I'm going to say tying back to the quality time, because we saw that satisfaction levels reach 81%, right? That's an all-time high. What would take that even farther, like increase that score, is having the foundation of obviously the right vehicle and the right pricing. But the thing that we saw in the research is that the other thing that consumers want to see more of is, hey, how about a little bit less pressure to buy and be more of a consultant to me, but also making the wait time more efficient, where during that wait time I get to know my vehicle or doing something that's productive that I want to do that's quality to me. And they said that would take satisfaction to another level. So I think that's really important to focus on, because Jade and I talk about this all the time. If this dealership experience is so great, they're going to come back and get their vehicle serviced there. And you want that lifetime customer coming back to buy a car and get their car serviced, because we do see an increased number of, especially new buyers, that said, I think it's 82%, that said, I am likely to go back to the dealership to get my vehicle serviced, given that I had a great experience at your dealership. So make me a lifetime customer by catering to what I want and what I need.
Thank you. I have one real quick question, and it goes back to what you were talking about, Jade, your thing about the trade-in valuations and things like that. Did the studies, and maybe Vanessa, you can answer this as well, is about how many people actually, before they come to a dealership in person, actually have got a value off a third-party site for what they think their trade-in is worth? Is that number, I assume, has gone up dramatically in the last couple of years, but I don't know what that number is.
Vanessa, do you have the exact stat on that one? I would actually venture to say, and I'm not sure that we ask it exactly that way, but the stat is the average consumer has nearly 3 offers in hand. So it's almost every single one is using some type of third party to validate the price of their car and to understand the price of the vehicle that they're interested in and to make sure that they're getting a fair deal.
Well, I could say that in class, I wouldn't get thrown under the bus, because I like to beat them up really hard about, that's all. If I had a number, I could say 80%, but I'll work on you. I'll call you back.
We'll get that to you. I guarantee you we have it.
Yeah, I would have to look it up, but I don't have it handy. I'm sure it's really high because everyone goes, I mean, not everyone, but a lot of people go to third-party sites just to start the process, and that we know for sure in the data. But we can get you that trade-in percentage.
But you see, the downside is all the things you've been talking about. So many salespeople don't even ask because they just assume that they don't know what their car is worth. It's amazing how many people, unfortunately, still don't accept that. So anything you can do would be great to share that with us. I appreciate it.
Consumers are way more savvy than we give them credit for.
Yeah, that's for sure.
That is for sure. Well, Jade and Vanessa, thank you so much for your insights today. It has been wonderful having you on the show. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
That's all the time we have for this episode. A huge thank you again to our guests, Jade Terreberry and Vanessa Tone, for joining us. If you're enjoying the show, leave us a rating, a review, and tell a friend. Once again, I'm Michael Hay.
And I'm Camron Wilson. This has been Dealer Driven from NADA. Keep your dealership in drive, and we'll see you next time.